Hi class, my name is Katherine Carson and I'd like to talk with you about the important topic of classroom communication. There's so much research available surrounding this topic, and most of the information is quite prescriptive in nature, offering teachers the how or the what, but not always the why. Instructors are beginning to see the importance of focusing on the relational aspect of communication in the classroom, and this is because the relational aspect deals with the student-centric view of motivating a student to want to learn, to want to grow. The role of the teacher is so important, but I'd like to focus on the role of both teacher and student in an attempt to expose some potential gaps in some constructs, some ideas. I'm going to focus more intentionally on why students are motivated to learn and what mediating forces may be at play in this motivation. So I will examine the claim that student motivation is fostered through teacher immediacy and mediated by student perception and need. In the case of learning, motivation can be seen as a process that encourages the effective use of skills and knowledge to achieve personal goals for quality of learning. It's not always based on quantity. Quality of learning is quite important. Human motivation can be really complex because it deals with why people believe or behave or even think like they do. Motivation can be both intrinsic and extrinsic. Motivation that's intrinsic deals with internal feelings or attitude, personal drive, while extrinsic deals with outside forces. Intrinsic rewards are thought to be more personal, satisfying, and essential for profound learning. In a study conducted by a sampling of low-achieving high school students, higher levels of intrinsic motivation were reported to being linked to higher classroom engagement. In fact, those students who reported wanting a better life for themselves outside of the classroom were automatically intrinsically motivated to want to learn because they were able to see the link between their goals, their personal goals, and their values of what they wanted and learning in the classroom. This study also suggested that these students were more task-oriented, they worked harder, they were more studious, and they earned higher grades because of this. So the question I'd like to pose is, do teachers have a part in fostering this student motivation? And if so, how is this achieved? Christoffel suggests that teachers use immediacy behaviors and become active agents who stimulate motivation through the process of modeling, communication, instruction, and socialization with students. Teacher immediacy is the communicative and behavioral approach from teacher to student that signals closeness through perceptions, friendliness, warmth, and liking. Immediacy can come in the form of both verbal and nonverbal communication. In fact, Cheeseborough and McCroskey in their textbooks suggested that nonverbal immediacy cues are more significant than even verbal ones. And this is because, quote, nonverbal may exist independent of any verbal message, but verbal messages are usually accompanied by a variety of nonverbal messages. Furthermore, if a verbal message suggests immediacy, while nonverbal messages are contradictory, receivers tend to disregard the verbal and respond to the nonverbal. Albert Maharbian suggests that nonverbal communication makes up as much as 80% of interpersonal communication. Teachers who enact nonverbal immediacy cues use cues such as body language, body position, eye contact to help mediate the feeling of closeness with their students. So the question we have to ask is, what mediating factors are at play in this process of motivation? In other words, what mediates a student's perception of teacher immediacy? Students' perceptions could be significantly mediated by their own personal needs. In fact, this needs-based perspective assumes that there are unmet needs that we all have, or insufficient satisfaction, and that's what drives human motivation. According to the expectancy value theory, students will be motivated to perform tasks that they personally perceive as intrinsically satisfying and that they believe will have a high personal success rate. In the case of motivation, belief of success is what drives a student. Psychologist Abraham Maslow developed a theory based on these innate personal desires and needs. He proposed that these needs were hierarchically arranged in 5 categories, and you'll see that on the screen. in the form of a chart. Physiological needs are there at the base of the triangle. These are needs such as food, sex, oxygen. They're foundational needs that are found at the bottom. And then as you go up the chart, you'll see there's security needs, belongingness, esteem. And then at the top, there's self-actualization. These self-actualization needs are the last thing that you would get to. In fact, Maslow suggests that each of the needs in the hierarchy must be satisfied prior to moving to the very next tier. Self-actualization deals more specifically with an individual working to achieve their full potential. Those working towards self-actualization are in a catalytic process of driven achievement. At this level, this is the most powerful form of intrinsic motivation because it leads to personal satisfaction that is connected with personal, deep, innate needs. According to both the expectancy value theory and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, student perception is filtered through personal needs. Psychologist Albert Bandura is credited with the concept of self-efficacy, in which he suggests that an individual's success is based on their belief in their personal ability and their ability to accomplish these goals that they've set for themselves. So as students perceive behavioral cues of immediacy, they must decide how to interpret and act on those cues. Students who expect the outcome of hard work to be intrinsically valuable, they're driven by a high level of personal achievement. They believe in their own abilities to succeed, and they're motivated by this innate feeling. Let's talk for a minute about strengths and weaknesses. First of all, some of the strengths of this construct is that teacher immediacy has been well documented and researched, and it's clear that there is a connection between teacher immediacy and motivation. In fact, there's a strong fostering of motivation in the classroom when teachers use these immediacy cues. Secondly, the argument of student perceptions of teacher immediacy, which are mediated by these various needs that we've discussed, are really strongly understood through the framework of these theories, the expectancy value theory, Maslow's needs, and the self-efficacy theory that I've outlined for you here. Each of these self-centric needs-based theories are proven in our culture in America. We're known as an individualist culture. This is because there exists a strong motivation here towards autonomy or personal achievement. There's personal responsibility. Think about the American dream. The United States has this strong, driven, innate desire to achieve. And as a weakness, an unstable nature of motivation can be viewed as a weakness because motivation can't be controlled. There's a reliance on a response in the case of teacher to student or teacher student perspectives or any of that. Secondly, immediacy in and of itself is not enough to fully guarantee effective learning outcomes. So the better way to look at immediacy is that it's a first step in fostering motivation. In conclusion, let's take a look at what's been presented in this video through a biblical lens. You know, the Bible is replete with admonition surrounding moral character, and one of those things is humility. As teachers, we need to follow the instructions in Philippians 2 where it says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself." Look at the interest of others, not just ourselves. And so teachers who are believers, who are living this way, they're just going to naturally have an outpouring of immediacy. These behaviors of eye contact, smiling, nodding, being interested are going to be an outflow of what the Spirit has done to change their lives. Similarly, students who are believers are going to be motivated naturally to work hard. You know, their motivation will not be fully dependent on the teacher immediacy or even on the self-efficacy, but their motivation will ultimately be to obey the Lord and to work with excellence for Him. Thank you for allowing me to present this construct to you. If you have any questions, please do comment, and I would look forward to hearing those comments.